Starting in section 42, we're going to hit a bunch of subjects that helps us to wrap up what has clearly been the most extensive and, from a time perspective, the longest module that we've had. We're going to start that finishing up process by talking about customs holds, documentation reviews, and exams. Some unpleasantries that importers might experience based on a number of factors. Let's talk about that. First bullet, U.S. CBP does not automatically have to release cargo upon receipt of an entry. In fact, quite the contrary. CBP uses algorithms, as we note in our second bullet point, and a process known as selectivity to determine what goods don't get released right away. To read out the whole sentence in our second bullet, ACE uses those algorithms, mathematical instructions in the software, to support a concept known as selectivity, to identify at-risk shipments. Maybe contraband, maybe a declared value that's lower than what it really should be, any variety of reasons. Those reasons are built into the mathematical algorithms in customs' highly confidential software. It might be, some other examples, a first-time importer is almost always going to get checked, put on customs hold, maybe a documentation review, likely an actual physical exam. It could be certain commodities, steel, textiles, more sensitive commodities, and countries of origin. That could be a determining factor too. Last bullet, CBP has different levels of scrutiny, because that's really what we're talking about here, both the digital and physical scrutinization of entries that it can exercise in checking the validity/legality of imported goods. And they are a customs hold, a review of documents, and a customs exam. Let's go through each scenario. CBP can put a customs hold on shipments at its discretion, and a hold is not the same thing as an exam. Really? It's all in the name. Customs is putting the brakes on the immediate release of an entry. They're putting a hold on it. And as we see in our sub-bullet, depending on the circumstances, there are different types of customs holds. The first is a manifest hold. This takes us back a couple of sections ago when we talked about carrier manifests. That's what we mean here. Based on questions CBP may have specific to carrier manifest information and or ISF information, that Customs is saying on a particular entry, hold on a minute. There's some information on the manifest that we'd like more details on. There's information on the manifest that doesn't jive with an entry. That's a manifest hold. Probably the most pervasive is our third bullet, commercial enforcement hold. And that's any hold placed by CBP related to enforcement of customs regulations. Something doesn't look right specific to customs regs. Customs can put a hold on it. And Customs can put a hold on merchandise on behalf of partner government agencies too. There's also what's called a statistical validation hold, and that's a hold triggered by a discrepancy in reported information and CBP's prior experience. What does that mean? Well, a product is claimed to be coming out of a country as a country of origin that historically has never even made that product, or the valuation might be considerably lower than what Customs has seen in the past for a specific product. And because there's so much big data that Customs has access to because it's dealing with millions of entries, they can come up through their algorithms with that type of information to instruct the software to check a valuation of a specific product against the zillions of imports of the same product historically, or a product's weight, any variety of things. A CET hold, parenthetically A-TCET, that is executed on behalf of the Anti-Terrorism Contraband Enforcement Team. A hold specific to some question, some concern about potential terrorist activity. And a PGA hold, we talked about this briefly, it's based on instructions received from partner government agencies to CBP, communicated via what? ACE. So there's a circle back there to how PGA holds can be executed with CBP. It's not a phone call. It's not a manual thing. That's done through ACE. Moving away from customs holds and now talking about documentation reviews, CBP also reserves the right to request documentation specific to an entry. In the old days, and we're talking about prior to ACE, even though the entry was submitted electronically, if customs wanted to see documents, they pretty much had to be brought over to the customs building or to a CFS to review those documents. In the old days, the entire entry would have to be brought physically to customs. In the age of ACE, as we note in our third bullet, documents can be shared now using the Document Image System, DIS, which we've mentioned a couple times. We're going to talk about more in just a little bit. These days, if customs receives an entry and they decide that they want to look at the documentation, the commercial invoice, the packing list, the bill of lading, maybe a certificate of origin, customs can request that information through ACE, and using the Document Image System, which is essentially a scanning capability of the docs, they can be sent to customs electronically. As a trade tip, both CBP and PGAs can request additional documentation. This is that slide, and this comes from CBP, that talks specifically about Document Image System. When customs says, hey, we want to see these documents, nobody has to bring them over physically to the customs agent. They can be sent via ACE. What is it? U.S. Customs and Border Protection is currently transitioning cargo release and entry summary processing to a paperless workflow in ACE. To support these transactions, filers can submit supporting documentation to the government during the import process and for export manifests through the Document Image System. Of course, we're just interested in the import part. Instead of providing a physical copy of a form, users should submit an electronic version of a document in PDF or JPEG format. It's just way easier to get things done. How does it work? Number one, the filer submits entry or entry summary to CBP. ACE reviews the submission and holds, releases, or rejects the entry. Number three, if documents are needed, filer responds by sending requested documents via the Document Image System. ACE reviews, they decide what they're going to do, either let the merchandise be released or request some sort of physical exam, and that's how things work. This is just much more convenient and a much better way to maintain a record of what's going on specific to an entry. DIS is an essential tool, an essential component of ACE. Let's talk a little bit about exams. US CBP also carries out the physical examination of imported goods. And there's a couple ways that they can do that. One being more intrusive than the next, physically intrusive. There's an X-ray exam, what's referred to as a non-intrusive inspection. CBP requests a container, an ocean container, to be driven through a large X-ray device at an ocean terminal. That's very common. A tailgate inspection is a situation where the customs agent, opens the rear of a container to conduct a brief inspection and ascertain need for any further review. Sometimes referred to as a partial exam. They'll pull off some cartons, they'll dig a little bit deeper into the container if need be, but it's not what's referred to as an intensive exam, which is what we see in the third bullet. And as the name indicates, that's the highest level of unpleasantry for the importer. That's a situation where goods are transferred to a third-party bonded site, containers stripped, and all goods are examined. These are most often third-party sites. Bonded warehouses, basically. Bonded yards. The whole facility is one big bonded facility. Customs will go over there and take out every single carton in an ocean container and do with them what they will. Open them. Leave them laying around. And all of the expense associated with that, including putting everything back in the container, is on the tab of the importer. Intensive exams, as we said, as the name indicates, not very pleasant. But these are the different levels that exist. All right, let's stop here. When we come back, we'll hit something that's pretty important, especially to the U.S. government, the actual payment of customs duties.